She woke to the thud of boots. Sharp, deliberate, synchronized. Row 6 was no longer a quiet corner of the aircraft, but a battlefield in miniature. Passengers froze mid-breath as shadows fell across the aisle. 4 men in desert camouflage had closed in with predatory precision. Their weapons were not drawn, but the authority in their posture was enough to silence a cabin of 200. The leader raised his hand, and in that suspended moment, the air thickened with dread. Every eye followed the soldier's gaze, down to the woman who had been sleeping lightly, her head resting against the oval window, her fingers folded as though in prayer. She blinked, drowsy confusion softening into awareness. The soldiers did not speak. They stood encircling her seat as if guarding a flame or preparing to seize it. Passengers leaned away,
Excuse me, sirs, you need
whispering
to
with
remain
eyes
seated
but
during
not with
takeoff.
mouths. Some thought terrorist.
What's going on with
Others thought fugitive. The few who recognized the faint insignia stitched onto the soldier's shoulders realized this was something graver. These were not ordinary MPs. They were Navy SEALs. And they had not come for violence. They had come for reverence. The woman sat upright, slow, almost defiant in her silence.
You don't stand for me.
A scar traced the side of her neck
You
like a
stand for
faded
the ones
memory
who never
carved
came
into
home.
flesh. She didn't startle, didn't tremble. Her gaze flicked from one soldier to the next, measuring them, knowing their kind without needing names. It was not fear that passed through her chest, it was recognition. She was lean, the kind of lean carved by endurance, not vanity. A plain hoodie and worn jeans hid the body of someone who had been through wars of her own. Her hair, tied back without care, showed strands of gray betraying a youth spent too fast. She looked like any tired passenger returning home, except her stillness carried the weight of someone who had once stood on the other side of the line, where life and death shake hands in silence. The SEALs didn't move. They waited as if for her permission, their bodies stiff, their eyes lowered not from weakness but from respect. It was the passengers who squirmed. They searched for context, for explanation, for a voice of authority to tell them what spectacle they had stumbled into at 36,000 feet. No one explained. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, and in that flicker of darkness, the memories returned. The desert sun blinding off endless dunes. The copper scent of blood where her comrades had fallen. The rhythmic chop of blades overhead as helicopters lifted out the wounded. And the silence after the firefight, the silence heavier than bullets. That silence had followed her home. It followed her everywhere. Her name was Evelyn Grant. Once, Captain Evelyn Grant, medic with the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. She had patched wounds while bullets snapped overhead, dragged soldiers heavier than herself across fields laced with fire. She had stitched lives together with hands trembling from exhaustion, but never from fear. And when her tour was cut short after shrapnel tore through her shoulder, she carried home more than scars. She carried the names of 13 men and women who hadn't made it back. She spoke their names every dawn in private ritual. Civilian life had not been kind. The quiet of ordinary mornings screamed louder than any battlefield. Supermarkets felt like traps. Conversations about trivial inconveniences cut like insults to memory. She lived alone, surviving on discipline and silence, her only company a folded flag in a frame, delivered to her with military precision but civilian indifference. So when she boarded this flight, she had expected nothing but another long journey in the narrow limbo of commercial travel. She had not expected Navy SEALs to surround her like a living monument. The reason was invisible to the others. But not to the men standing before her. They knew her name. They knew her silence. They had not come to arrest her, nor to shame her. They had come to stand watch. Because one of their own had once lived because of her hands. The passengers began to fidget. A businessman in first class whispered, "What's going on?" A child asked his mother if the soldiers were there to catch a bad person. The mother hushed him, but her eyes betrayed the same question. The injustice crept in quietly. Eyes turned not with respect, but with suspicion. The way people shifted in their seats, clutching armrests tighter, leaning away from her, revealed the ugliness of assumption. Evelyn saw it. She had lived with it. Civilians never asked. They only judged the silence, the scars, the sudden startle at loud noises. The soldiers remained like statues. The lead SEAL glanced at her, then dropped his gaze to the floor. That was when Evelyn realized, they were not protecting her from suspicion. They were protecting her from shame. They were giving her what the world never had, public dignity. Still, The tension in the cabin climbed. A flight attendant in pressed uniform approached, nervous, trying to enforce rules she didn't understand. She told the men they couldn't block the aisle, couldn't disrupt the passengers. Authority demanded order, and order had no patience for reverence. The seals did not move. Evelyn breathed in. She tasted recycled cabin air, metallic and stale, yet beneath it, the ghosts of dust and gunpowder lingered. Her body carried the memory of adrenaline so deeply that even now, in the quiet of an aircraft, her pulse kept rhythm with old firefights. The attendant's voice sharpened, though trembling. She told the men again they needed to step away. Rules first. Humanity second. The businessman in first class nodded approvingly, eager to return to the illusion of normal. Another passenger muttered about delays, about inconvenience. No one spoke up for Evelyn. Not yet. Silence roared in its complicity. Evelyn did not answer. Her power had never been in words. It was in stillness, in enduring what others could not. She sat unmoved as the world around her fidgeted, condemned, misunderstood. And then, the unexpected shift began. One seal reached into his pocket and withdrew a small folded patch. The kind sewn on a uniform, the kind earned, not given. He placed it on the empty tray table beside her without a word. Another removed a bracelet woven from paracord and set it gently on her armrest. A third bowed his head, his silence heavier than any declaration. Passengers who moments ago had judged her now stared in confusion. What had she done to command this? Who was she to these men feared across the globe? It was then that Evelyn opened her eyes, and without raising her voice, she whispered words that would ripple through every heart in earshot. You don't stand for me. You stand for the ones who never came home. The cabin stilled. Even the flight attendant faltered, her reprimand caught in her throat. The soldiers did not argue, did not clarify. They knew truth when it spoke. They stood because of the memory Evelyn carried in her silence, the weight she bore so civilians could forget wars existed. The businessman lowered his gaze, ashamed. The mother pulled her child close, whispering something reverent this time. And slowly, like dawn breaking through night, other passengers began to shift, not away from her, but toward her. One by one, heads bowed. A gesture of respect. No announcement demanded it. No authority commanded it. Dignity moved silently through the cabin until the entire row, then the entire section, then the entire aircraft sat in collective stillness. Evelyn did not cry. She had shed all her tears long ago. But her chest tightened with something rarer, recognition. For once, she was not invisible. The lead seal finally broke his silence, not to the passengers, not to the crew, but to her alone, words low and steady, "We don't forget our own." And with that, the standoff dissolved into something greater than conflict. It became ceremony. When the plane landed hours later, no one rushed the aisle. They waited. Passengers parted as Evelyn rose, her steps slow but unwavering. The seals flanked her once more, not as captors, not even as guards, but as honor-bearers. The sight of it burned itself into memory, a weary woman with scars unseen and seen, walking steady between warriors who owed her more than words could carry. On the tarmac, silence followed her into the night. Not suspicion. Not judgment. Respect. And those who witnessed it carried a truth back into their lives, that the strongest people often say the least, that dignity does not shout, that sacrifice can live quietly in the seat beside you, disguised as an ordinary passenger. Heroes do not always wear medals. Sometimes, they wear silence. If you are hearing this story now, let it remind you of the unseen battles fought daily in silence, and the respect owed to those who carry them. Where are you listening from tonight? Share your thoughts, and if this story stirred something in you, stay with us, for there are countless more stories of quiet heroes waiting to be told.